the social economy contributes to specific sectors across Europe and how public policy can foster a more conducive ecosystem that enables social economy entities to innovate, grow, and thrive. You may now access the report and its country notes online by visiting the OECD website or scanning the QR code on the screen. My name is Melis Aslan. I'm from the OECD Social Economy team, and I'll have the honor to be your MC for today's launch webinar. And throughout today's session, we'll hear from a range of distinguished speakers, both policymakers and practitioners, who will share insights on the ways in which the social economy is strengthening competitiveness and contributing to prosperity in Europe. So I'm very much looking forward to engaging discussions and to highlighting the important work happening across countries and sectors. But before we move on, just as usual, a few housekeeping rules, just a few reminders to help us run the event smoothly. This event is being live streamed and recorded, and to help us better understand who is joining us today from different parts of the world, please we kindly ask all participants to include your full name, your organization, and your country in your Zoom display name. So we're very happy to present the results of this fruitful collaboration between the European Commission and the OECD today. And now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to give the floor to Ms. Ruth Passerman, Director for Funds Programming and Implementation at the Directorate General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion of the European Commission for her opening remarks.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everybody, ladies and gentlemen, dear partners in the social economy, dear colleagues, good morning, and a very warm welcome. It is really a great pleasure to open this launch event for the new joint European Commission OECD publication on the social economy. I really want to thank you for being here today and for your commitment to policies that place people at the center of economic life. Countries, regions and cities across the Union are looking for new approaches to address societal challenges such as aging populations, economic disparities, social exclusion, and environmental pressures. And the social economy offers an efficient, effective, and innovative solution that brings economic activity with social impact. With a broad range of actors, ranging from cooperatives to small associations, mutual benefit societies, foundations, and social enterprises, the social economy can support the EU's broader goals of competitiveness and resilience. Involving actors of all sizes, it also contributes to these goals at the local, regional, national, and international level. The social economy, which has nearly 4.5 million organizations in the European Union, creates jobs and quality jobs, which are grounded in collective entrepreneurship and in the integration of disadvantaged people. At least 11.5 million people across the EU are employed by the social economy, and this is 6.3% of the employed population. It promotes inclusion, supports the formalization of employment, and contributes to more stable employment and better job quality across our economies. The social economy also provides opportunities to people who would not easily find work in the traditional labor market. This is particularly clearly with the work integration social enterprises, the so-called WISEs. They operate in areas where conventional businesses often struggle. They offer personalized support, rebuilding workers' confidence, helping them to develop skills step by step, and preparing them from long-term employment in the standard labor market. This approach is more relevant today than ever. Let me just take one example. In Belgium, the government has recently set the ambitious goal to bring back a large number of long-term unemployed people and people on long-term sick leave back into the labor market. This will surely be a major challenge. It requires tailored pathways, person-centered approaches, adapted workplaces, strong local partnerships, and an economy that is ready to welcome people whose journey back to work may be a bit complicated. And in this effort, the social economy and the WISEs are an important part of the solution. The social economy also increases our resilience, a bit like the environment, which is more robust, where biodiversity is higher. Our economies are more resilient when they entail a lot of different types of businesses. And in the economy, economic ecosystem, social economy actors not only have their place, but they also give strength to our economy and represent reliable providers of essential services, such as long-term care. Now, these diverse contributions to our collective well-being are captured in the title of the flagship report that we're launching today, that you can see on your screen, Social Economy Contributing to Competitiveness and Prosperity. Together with the OECD, we wanted to provide a clear and evidence-based overview of the social economy across Europe. This publication offers policymakers and readers a solid introduction into the social economy. It showcases the work of social economy organizations in two specific sectors, housing and care, and offers a series of concrete policy pointers. It helps us better understand how social economy ecosystems can thrive and the challenges they face, especially when scaling up. Now, as you know, European member states have committed themselves to work on advancing social economy ecosystems with a Council recommendation in 2023. We hope that this publication will help further policymakers to develop their ambitions for the social economy. For the European Commission, this work supports our implementation of the Social Economy Action Plan, which was launched in 2021, and our broader objectives under the European Pillar of Social Rights. It complements our work on skills, on including labor markets, and on strengthening local development. I would really like to thank the OECD team and my colleagues in DG Employment and all the experts, networks, and practitioners who have contributed to this work. And above all, I really want to thank the social economy organizations themselves, because it's their daily work, which they carry out quietly with perhaps not so much visibility, which really changes lives. So together with Lamia Kamal Shawi, I'm delighted to officially launch this joint European Commission OECD publication. And I invite all of you to engage actively to help us promote social economy, share this publication, share your insights, and continue to work with us to strengthen the social economy in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We would like to thank Ruth Passerman and the European Commission for positioning the importance of the social economy within the broader EU agenda, and your remarks provide an excellent foundation for today's discussions. Now we turn to Ms. Lamia Kamal Shawi, Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship, SMEs, Regions and Cities at the OECD, to hear her perspective on how the OECD has been advancing work on the social economy from the CFE's vantage point. Lamia, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Melis. Dear Ruth, dear colleagues, everybody online. I saw that we had almost 170, and it was quite impressive because I was looking at the chat, and we have people from so many different cities from around Europe, even from Lebanon, so it's even larger. It's great to have you all here, and like Ruth just mentioned, we have really to welcome you and to congratulate you for all this social economic organization for the tremendous work that you are doing. For organizations like the OECD and the European Commission, we really believe that for too long the social economy largely overlooking key policy debate. But fortunately, in recent years, that has changed. The social economy is now progressively, increasingly recognized as a pillar of growth, competitiveness, and employment. And rightly so, the data said that globally nearly 7% of GDP is generated by the social economy. In Europe, the social economy accounts for over 6% of total employment, and as much as 10% in France, Belgium, and Italy. That's more people that work than in the construction sector in this country. So it's tremendous, but these data are not so much well known. So as governments across the OECD and the EU double down their efforts to boost competitiveness, they must pay attention to the tremendous contribution of the social economy. Since 2011, the OECD and the European Commission, we have been working together to better understand the role of the social economy and its potential to drive competitiveness and the green and the digital transitions. And I want to take this opportunity, of course, to thank our colleagues in the Commission for the close collaboration we have enjoyed over the years, especially to you, Ruth, but also to Mario Nava, Director General at DG Imp, as well as Brigitte Filali-Brogno and Julien Bays. Thank you so much. We work very well together, joining the forces to make sure that we give the visibility to the social economy as it deserves. So today's report marks the next milestone in these partnerships. It looks in depth at the role of the social economy in addressing two of Europe's greatest challenges, as Ruth just mentioned, tackling a lack of housing and managing a rapidly aging population. Talking about housing, the key features of the crisis, of the housing crisis that we tend to mention as being a global crisis. We have seen that across Europe and the OECD, these key features are quite well known. Over the last decades, house prices in the OECD have grown roughly twice as fast as incomes, and nearly 9% of households in the EU now spend more than 40% of their disposable income on housing. That's super huge. Europe's housing crisis is not only a social challenge, which of course it is, but not only, it strongly undermines its competitiveness on the global stage. We know that as a housing cost surge in our most productive cities, for instance, firms lose access to the skills they need as the key workers are basically priced out, labor market thins, wage bills rise, and businesses who compete at the margin for poverty, they also struggle to scale. So it's a big cost on competitiveness as well. Across the OECD, for instance, we have seen that public investment in housing has been falling, dropping by 30% between 2009 and 2020, and private supply, unfortunately, has failed to keep up. And as this report that we're launching today shows, the social economy is stepping in. It's stepping in as a third provider to help deliver on, well, I would say a kind of public mission of affordable housing. Housing associations and cooperatives already manage a substantial share of the housing stock, from, for instance, 1/3 of homes in the Netherlands to 1/4 in Austria. And they keep homes genuinely affordable by setting rents on a cost basis, reinvesting the surplus locally, and using models such as community land trust that try to decouple land values from housing costs. The result is constantly lower rents. For example, we have interesting data in Helsinki in Finland, where private rents are 60% higher than the cost-based rent set by housing association. So the evidence is clear, community-driven housing works, and it's time to bring it to the center of housing strategy in many more countries. Now, turning to the second thematic focus of this report, demographic change. Across the OECD, the number of people aged over 65 has been growing almost 3 times faster than the working age population. By 2020, almost 8.5% of the EU population is projected to have long-term care needs. So the economic consequences, they are super stark, with long-term cost in the OECD projected to double by 2050. And here again, the social economy is stepping in with concrete solutions. Non-profit care providers employ millions across Europe. They deliver nearly 1/4 of elderly care, and almost half in countries such as Germany and Austria, for instance. Their models are often most cost-effective, with a focus on community-based support that allows the elderly to stay in their homes, but also more human, putting people first over profit. Today's report show that in those both in sectors, housing and care, the social economy is helping to shore up Europe's competitiveness and prosperity, while, of course, continue to deliver social inclusion. So how do we give the social economy what it needs really to scale up solutions? The reports highlight basically three priorities that I'm going to try to summarize. The first one, we need the right institutional frameworks that define and reward social enterprises at all levels of governance. Following the OECD recommendation on social and solidarity economy and social innovation that was adopted by many countries, by all OECD countries and beyond in 2022, but also the EU Council recommendation on the social economy in 2023. Fortunately, we have seen many countries that have adopted national strategies or laws for the social economy, ensuring a clear definition and vision that guide policy, including countries like Poland, Spain, and France, Greece, to name a few. Now we need to turn to the next frontier, subnational authorities, cities, regions. While national framework set overarching goals for the social economy, in reality, regional, city and local authorities often provide targeted support to translate those priorities into concrete actions. And here, national government should back these efforts by putting in place strong multi-level governance arrangements that really match national ambitions with local action. Second priority identified in the report, business supports need to help the social economy professionalize and scale. What does it mean concretely? Social economy enterprises encounter many of the same challenges as small and medium-sized enterprises: lack of skills, weaker management capacity, limited access to finance, but they are not always eligible for support policies tailored to for-profit entities. And this really needs to change. And not just in the public sector. The private sector also has a key role to play, for instance, by opening up access to finance and opening up access to supply chains, to social enterprises. And this can be done only if government policy is helping by providing support that help de-risk lending and encourage national industry codes for responsible investment that explicitly include social economy engagement. Third priority for action, using taxation to enhance the impact of the social economy. All 27 EU countries now offer at least some tax incentives or exemptions that benefit non-profit. But many social economy entities remain excluded from that or find it difficult to navigate, to understand these complex tax structures, guidance, and reporting requirement. More must be done to reform tax system to ensure they benefit all social entities. So at the OECD, we will continue to advance on these three priorities, of course: strong institutional framework, targeted business support, and supportive tax system through the next phase of collaboration with the DG Employment of the European Commission. We're very excited to pursue this work with you, of course, and for you. And this priority will also be reflected in some other ongoing project that we are conducting with the European Commission, with the ESG reform, to develop social economy strategies, specifically in some countries or some regions: Croatia, France, Greece, Portugal, and Wallonia in Belgium. So, ladies and gentlemen, I invite you all to dive further into today's report, which offers the insights and evidence we need to unleash the real potential of the social economy to tackle some of Europe's greatest challenges and drive its competitiveness and future prosperity. I would like to take the opportunity to thank my colleague Amal Chevreau and Melise and all the team, the social economy team in here in the OECD. Thank you so much, and congratulations to all the group, EU and OECD together, and of course all of you, because we have been working with many of you to come up with this report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lamia. And indeed, as you were speaking, we continue to have more people join us from different parts of the world. So thank you so much for giving us a glimpse of how the OECD has been working with governments from all levels to support social economy development. And knowing that everybody is excited to hear about the findings from the report, I would like to now give the floor to Amal Chevreau, Head of Unit for Social Economy and Innovation at the OECD, and Margit Perko, Policy Officer from the Director General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusion at the Commission, to walk us through the report.
Thank you very much, Melis, and very excited to be here today to this huge launch. This is, as you said in your opening remarks, Lamia and Ruth, a very massive and important piece of work that's been developed jointly with our colleagues at the European Commission. So without further ado, I just wanted to walk you through what you will find in the report, and then underline also why this report is important and what this report supports. So first of all, you will find a lot of analysis on the contribution of social economy to two critical sectors, as we've just heard from Ruth and Lamia, the care and housing sector. Second, we've looked into also three critical framework conditions, which are taxation, business support, and institutional arrangements, because they have a huge impact on social economy, operation, and activities. A lot of new data, country examples, policy orientations, but mostly also information summarized on the three framework conditions in 27 country notes. Next slide, please. This report has been developed over, I would say, even more than 2 years. And throughout these 2 years, over 2 years, we have conducted a lot of research. Of course, we have launched 2 surveys with our colleagues from the Commission, involved a lot of expert groups, namely the expert group on social economy and social enterprises of the Commission, but also the informal expert group here at the OECD on the social economy and social innovation. We have consulted more than 109 stakeholders and worked also with colleagues here in the House in OECD, for instance, on taxation with our CTPA colleagues and TaxUD from the Commission, and I'm happy that they will take the floor later on, and also other directorates. Next slide, please. So why is this report important? I think that Lamia and Ruth has underlined the importance of social economy. And we, through this report, wanted to bring closer to home to many people what the social economy brings as benefits and how it contributes to competitiveness and prosperity in Europe and beyond. So, of course, you've heard these numbers and these figures, but I'm glad to reiterate them again. So, in terms of employment, social economy provides 6.3% of the employment in EU, representing 11.5 million people employed. It generated almost 912 billion euros in turnover in 2021. And of course, it participates to a lot of social and societal objectives, such as social inclusion, work integration, social cohesion and well-being, among other many policy objectives. An interesting piece of work that was conducted by our colleagues here, DG AMP, is a survey. It's called the Eurobarometer survey on the social economy in the lives of Europeans. And I've just wanted to highlight 2 interesting findings from the survey. So 3 out of 4 Europeans recognize the importance of the social economy for well-being of society in their country. And 93% of surveyed Europeans think that businesses should be driven by social economy values, such as environmental goals, profit surplus reinvestment, and others. So this report further strengthened the importance of social economy and underscores the need for better support so that it can conduct its activities and operations. So what does this report support? It supports a number of policy objectives that are part of the EU framework on social economy, namely the Social Economy Action Plan that was adopted back in 2021. and that insists on three main goals: creating supportive frameworks, conditions, and supporting also capacity building so that the social economy professionalizes, scales up, and better recognition of the impact of the social economy. And the other important agenda is the EU 23 Council recommendation on developing framework conditions for the social economy. It also supports, and I would like to go to yes, it also aligns with the OECD recommendation on the social and solidarity economy and social innovation, which has 9 pillars and align pretty much with the EU objectives on providing better framework conditions for social economy. To date, our recommendation has been adopted by 44 countries, and we will align also the reporting between the EU Council recommendation and our recommendation as well. So without further ado, I'm going to give the floor to my partner in crime, our partner in crime, Margit Percot, to walk you through the main findings from the report on the sectoral applications of the social economy to care and housing. Margit, the floor is yours.
Indeed. Thank you, Amal. So as you can imagine, we could have picked many more chapters. So the social economy is inactive in almost all sectors. Sometimes we say maybe not so much in defense, but then people point you, oh, even in defense, there are some elements where social economy contributes to civilian resilience and matters like that. So it's really a very broad topic, and it's just we had to pick a bit, and the idea was that we wanted to have a publication that kind of introduces also newcomers to the topic. So that's why we have all the institutional information, but we also wanted to give a glimpse into the work of a social economy, and we could have done that by very broadly going across all sectors, but instead we decided to focus on two very important societal challenges, one being the care and the other one being the housing, to really zoom in a bit and give quite a few examples what's happening, what the social economy can offer, and to really give a better picture of how much the social economy contributes in those two important sectors. We will start with the care part. So as you are aware, care is a topic that concerns a lot of people, whether as providers formally as workers in the care sector, or informally parents caring for their children, or people caring for their parents when they are old. There's a lot of people who are somewhat involved in care activities, and of course that's a very time-consuming task. And we need support from professional care services. So that's where it is also important to acknowledge the labor market relevance of the care sector, because if someone has to take care of their elderly parents on their own, oftentimes the care is so intensive that they cannot work. So if you can provide good quality care services for this person, they are freed up to work, and then the burden is shared between the professional care service and the informal care that contributes still to the care for this person. So it has really important labor market implications to have a good care system. And of course, there is a public part. It depends on the country, how big it is. But the social economy is a very important complement. And oftentimes we see a slight better working condition. Of course, it's a challenge across the care sector to have good working conditions, but still we tend to see a more autonomy for workers. For example, if it's a care cooperative. So there is also benefits for the people working in care in the social economy. And we highlighted a bit the social economy solutions that the social economy brings to the care sector. So that's on the one hand, it zooms in on the local provision of care services. So it really allows to do the care where it is needed, and to provide people with autonomy, because many people want to stay as long as possible at home, and their mobile care services that visit people at home can be very useful.
Similarly, it's also for rural and more remote areas where typically commercial providers of care may not go to those regions, but the social economy is there, and they help provide care to those people in the more remote and rural areas. Then there is also the issue of connecting healthcare with other social services, because sometimes people need healthcare, of course, but it's also like they may need someone to go shopping for them, or they may need some company to just have someone join them in their life to talk a bit and to feel community. So that's also a strength of the social economy to combine that. Then there's also the idea to use social innovation to improve service delivery. Sometimes it's with the help of an app or some technological means, but it can also just the way they deliver the services, really putting people into the center and really providing adapted services that are quality-wise better for the care recipient. And the last point we highlight is advocating for better working conditions for the care workers. I will go to the next slide, please. So we gave a bit of policy options. I will not go into the details now because we are having a very packed agenda. So we want to raise the profile of care work for the social economy to flag all the potentials we see. Policymakers can facilitate long-term partnerships with the social economy, especially in local areas, to really advance their ecosystem regionally. And we want to encourage the promotion of creating jobs also for men in the care sector, because as you know, it's a very female sector, and some countries are working explicitly on bringing in more men into the care services, which might be quite appreciated by some of the care recipients. And it's also about setting standards and monitoring the quality of delivered services. And then I would like to switch to the topic of housing. As you know, that's increasingly a very pressing topic for many Europeans. There is the affordability issue, but it's not only affordability. It's also about the surrounding infrastructure. It's about homelessness, which is the most extreme form of housing exclusion. And again, we see the social economy providing solutions to a lot of those problems. For example, we want to use better the existing housing stock. So sometimes you have vacant office buildings that could be transformed into something, or it can also be like these old industrial sites that can be transformed into housing, and social economy can be a part of that. We have inclusive and sustainable construction practices. For example, if you have cooperative in the working in the construction sector, they deliver regular construction work, but they may do it in a way that also benefits the workers and sets good working conditions. We have the topic of energy efficiency and the use of renewables as well. Again, innovative financing models that are unequally developed across countries. We will hear a bit later from Austria, for example. And there we think we can find inspiration across member states. So some countries have a stronger sector of social economy in the housing area, while others may be interested in developing those systems. We also have the topic of inclusion of specific vulnerable groups, where social economy is quite good. So they might offer work integration services or jobs, like individual work on how to find a job that fits your needs in the region and close to the area where people live. And that's also related to the provision of proximity services. So you may have a community center or some other engagement and development opportunities. Again, the policy options are quite wide, so there's a lot of things to do that policy makers can do, but we are already late in time, so I would like to hand over back to Amal.
Thank you very much, Margit. And yes, I'm conscious of time, and with the presence of State Secretary Vidic and Commissioner Jaime Iglesias, I'm going to go very fast on the framework conditions so that we give them we have the time to listen to them. So on the framework conditions, we looked into 3 framework conditions which are extremely important for social economy. Social economy policy across levels of government, business support, because as we heard this morning, just like any other businesses, they need business support. And of course, one of the most critical levers that could be used is also taxation. And I'm glad to see that we have colleagues from both CTPA and TaxSud with us today to discuss this issue. So on social economy across levels of government, what's interesting here to know is that there are at least 11 member states that have an official definition or framework and have designated institutions for the social economy. There are also regional laws and that further specify the scope of the social economy in countries such as Italy and Spain, and Belgium, which is a federal country, regulates the social economy at regional level. People might think that social economy always fall within ministries with the social action portfolio, but actually 14 member states, in 14 member states, the competence over social economy resides within the Ministry of Labor, strengthening the link between the social economy and job creation. And of course, this competence is sometimes combined with portfolios, with other social and economic portfolios. And in some other countries, the focus is mainly on social enterprises or social entrepreneurship. And some countries have, 7 member states, have specific definitions of and specific strategies on social enterprises or social entrepreneurship. 4 member states have regional institutions and legal frameworks: Belgium, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. The most important thing as well, and Lamia and Ruth insisted on that in their opening remarks, is the rise of interest from local authorities. And here, municipalities provide support. We have found that they provide support to scale social economy, either through funding or financing. And sometimes they even are the first entry point and contact of social economy and establishing partnerships with them to deliver social services and provide a lot of other elements of support to local communities. Now, what can be done to further support institutional arrangements for social economy? So first of all, OECD and EU recommend through their recommendations that countries establish dedicated policy units or ministries and so on. And in some member states, and we have one of them with us today, Spain, assign it as a core mandate, for instance, through the Ministry of Labor and Social Economy. And countries such as France, Italy, and Spain have integrated social economy roles across national, regional, and local level. There is also, as I said, a rise of local support structures, and we have seen that in Bulgaria, Poland, and Slovakia, where local support centers have emerged to support the sector. And in some countries, there is also an interesting partnership between sometimes a social economy organization and a ministry, such as in the case of Portugal, through the CASES, which is a cooperative. And CASES works to support also the stability of policy support despite political shifts. Now, there is also a rise in interest from municipalities, and we have seen that there are bottom-up approaches in Vienna, Silkeborg, Amsterdam, and Split in Croatia. And we have here today, perhaps he will emphasize this in his opening remarks, State Secretary Vidic. Now, business support, if we can go quickly to that. Now, business support is a very important element for the development of social economy. And we have seen here, you have a lot of information rising trends in support for social economy through innovative financing systems. And we have here very interesting initiatives from the public and the private sector through banks, for instance. So we have in Portugal, for instance, an interesting initiative through Portugal Social Innovation Funds, and BNP Paribas, which has issued, for instance, a first impact bonds funding. Public procurement also is another way to support social economy. Skills and capacity building, and here I have to mention training and mentoring programs and EU programs such as Erasmus Plus to help professionalize social entrepreneurs. Technology and innovation, and here there is, and we have seen that also in a prior report, the increasing use of technology and apps to support social economy, adopt digital tools, networking and knowledge sharing. Here, the idea is to see how countries can and how networks and social economy networks could foster learning and collaboration. Next slide, please. Yes, here we have a number of policy orientations. I'm not going to go through them, obviously, but I wanted just to highlight 3 elements. At the national level, what we suggest is that countries continue to develop unified strategies and clarify responsibilities and create, if possible, one-stop shops for the social economy, because that facilitates also their operations. Broaden the legal recognition and establish social investment funds so that social economy access the patient funding they need. Support talent development and awareness, because at the end of the day, social economy, especially organizations that have market-based activities, need to attract talent. At the subnational level, we also think that countries could or subnational governments could incorporate social economy into their regional strategies, use social clauses, for instance, and create local support hubs. Here, what's interesting in this work, and you will see it in the report, the role of the private sector. We think that the private sector is already playing a role, but it could play a much better role or much greater role through, for instance, integrating CSR into social economy entities into CSR and value chains. Build support networks, online portals, and impact reporting, for instance, to team up also with social economy entities, and promote local collaborations. Last but not least, taxation. So here, the idea was to look into why taxation is important for social economy and to support its development. We have interesting findings. Here, tax incentives we have found in countries where they exist encourage at least support for better investment in social economy, support also impact-focused activities, and bring an overall a large number of social benefits. Most countries have included exemptions, reduced rates, for instance, reduced rates on taxation, such as, for instance, in Italy on social cooperatives, or deductions for donations and investments. And benefits extend also to social entities, such as nonprofits, social enterprises, and their funders. Examples also of tax benefits include tax allowances, credits, matching funds, as we have seen in Ireland, and investment deductions, as we have seen in Italy. Here, last slide from me, what we think could be done to further leverage taxation for the social economy is to set clear eligibility criteria and create public registries for transparency. And we have examples from other countries, from some member states, implement simple reporting. This has come up a lot in the consultations with stakeholders. Sometimes they find that the language of taxation is complex to understand. Align schemes with EU state rules. And finally, include regular evaluation of tax measures to ensure effectiveness and sustainability, as seen in France and in the Netherlands. And this brings to a close our very dense and condensed presentation of the main findings from the report. Last but not least, of course, I have to mention that we have 27 country notes where you have detailed information on these 3 critical framework conditions in a nutshell, plus information on the scale of the social economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amal and Margit, for walking us through the different elements of the report. And we hope that our participants today will have a chance to take a closer look at these after today. And as this report gives quite a big importance to the experience and expertise of the different policymakers and practitioners from the social economy field, we will now start with a first discussion on the framework conditions analyzed as part of the report, institutional arrangements, business support, and taxation. And we will be welcoming distinguished speakers from different EU member states to share their experience on these 3 support areas. To moderate these discussions, I would like to now give the floor to Mia Rossi Gray, Team Leader for Social Economy and Social and Inclusive Entrepreneurship Unit from the European Commission.
Okay. Thank you very much, Melissa. I'm delighted to moderate this discussion today on paving the way for stronger enabling conditions. Let's go directly to the first point regarding the different levels of governance, from ministries to local city halls. We have with us today Jaime Iglesias, who's the Special Commissioner for Social Economy in the Ministry of Labour and Social Economy in Spain. And we also have Ivan Vidic, who is the State Secretary in the Ministry of Labour, Pension Systems, Family and Social Policy in Croatia. Great to have both of you with us today. Let's start with a question to State Secretary Ivan Vidic. Very happy to welcome you in today's discussion. So Croatia is currently participating in a TSI project led by the OECD and DG Reform of the European Commission to develop a national social economy strategy and a dedicated financial instrument to support social enterprises. How do you view the role of the social economy within your national priorities? And what role will this national strategy play in advancing the social economy in Croatia?
Well, good morning. Firstly, I would say a huge hi to everyone online. We're all over 200 participants, I see, so it's very interesting for all the actors. Of course, a big hello to everyone from the Commission and the OECD, not to mention now everyone who would take time. And of course, thank you, Madam Rossi, for moderating today. You got my surname right, which even Croatian moderators do rarely, and you got the full name of our ministry right. So you deserve a raise. In any case, for a few perspectives from Croatia. Firstly, we are really not one of the champions on social economy, even though we have a lot of social entrepreneurs in Croatia who are already doing a very good job. You've mentioned Split, but there's other examples who already now have proven to us what kind of contribution they can give on our labor market. As regards social economy, we've been to many events and we've seen many examples of what it can mean to our economy. So for those who maybe don't know Croatia that well, we're one of those countries that struggle with very high unemployment, especially of vulnerable groups on the labor market. In this sense, we have managed to really get our macro data straight. So we have very low, for example, unemployment, very high employment, record high. But the point is that from what we've seen so far in social economy, it can really tackle more detailedly some of the issues that we have both in our social security system and our labor market. We've seen already this morning so much examples. And we see that the social economy has huge potential to help us with some of our national priorities that are practically the same for many member states. I'm glad Mr. Iglesias is here, because being from Spain, from a Mediterranean country, we suffer from all the similar issues. So youth unemployment, housing is a big crisis for both of us, especially countries that have this element of tourism, to be very frank. And this is why we have been really detailedly looking into social economy. We had a national strategy that basically ran out. I can be open about that. But we've already, you could say, planned some funds in DSF+. What we need from this strategy is to provide us clear criteria on who operates in the social economy, how we can develop it, and what kind of framework we need. We've already started by baby steps with our, you could say, organization of our ministry. We'll have a specific unit that will deal with social economy. But this is really step number one. We need a whole framework on how to make social economy achieve its full potential. And the more we are getting detailedly informed into social economy, the more potential we can see for it in the future in Croatia, especially because we are currently in a situation where demographic trends are not very good. And we see that there is huge potential for social economy to help us with current projects that need to be more sustainable and more focused. In any case, we expect to achieve a lot in the coming few years. We're very happy that we're part of the TSI with our partner states and also the Commission and OECD. And together with other ministries, you've seen basically the setup of many countries. So we also had this debate, where should social economy be? We're very glad that it's part of the Ministry of Labor, which also covers labor, but the social security system. And we expect a lot, and we expect to reach those who are, in a way, I wouldn't say left behind, but need much more detailed approach, a better framework, completely different job opportunities. And you've mentioned the example of Split. We already have a lot of laws and projects that are helping us. The current example, the example you mentioned, Split, is actually what we call integrative workshop. And we have these all over Croatia. But when it comes to tax incentives, a system of financing, legislative framework, which we will start with the strategy, here we are really looking towards a TSI to help us move forward. And we only can hope that some of the data that's presented today in the presentation, of course, I'm more focused on employment. So when I saw 6.3, I was, of course, very stimulated. But these are the numbers we want to hit in Croatia, and we're very confident that with the funds we have available and with the support of the OECD and the Commission, who really know what we need, that we will make a huge step forward, and maybe one day we'll be in the position of other member states who are really champions of this segment of our economy. That's for the introduction from my part.
Okay. Thank you very much for this interesting example from Croatia, and wish you luck on your way forward with the TSI project and the national strategy. So then, Special Commissioner Jaime Iglesias, very happy to have you with us from Spain. That has a strong tradition in supporting social economy. In Spain, with a comprehensive framework law, strategies and funding in place, you have developed a well-organized institutional structure supporting the social economy across all levels of government. It ranges all the way from the national government to regional and local authorities. Could you explain why establishing social economy competencies at every level is crucial for Spain's social economy ambitions? Additionally, how do you coordinate and align these efforts at the national level to ensure a cohesive approach?
Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Mia. I'm pleased also to share this space with the State Secretary of Croatia. And good morning to Amal, Lamia, Ruth, Margit, and Melly. It's lovely to see that the European social economy is in the hands of powerful and talented women. I would like to start by thanking you for the invitation, of course, and especially to congratulate you for the publication of this report that helps in placing the social economy firmly on the global agenda, especially in a moment in which we particularly need the support of European institutions for this economic model globally and, of course, at European level. Indeed, in Spain, in recent years, the promotion of the social economy has become a matter of national, regional, and local policy. And actually, the social economy policies are present at all levels of government. It has enabled us to forge what I would call a truly consensus-based policy with a multi-level commitment that enables us to align a strategic vision for the nation with, of course, the particularities of each region. How we translate this, let's say, a strategic vision for the nation at the different levels and how we coordinate, I will explain briefly. First, we need, of course, the institutional and organizational structure or backing With this, I mean that, for example, our government has a specific Ministry of Social Economy. By the way, we are the only ones in Europe having this beautiful title in the name of the ministry. But this structure also translates to the different regions of our government, of our institutions and regions. I mean, we have a specific social economy units in the different regions and also in the different local entities of our country. Second, we also have a legislative and policy framework at the different levels of our administration. Specifically, for example, today I'm in Murcia, having a regional event here in an important region in Spain for social economy. And just to put an example, the region of Murcia, a specific region in Spain, has 6 regional agreements for social economy. The last one, 2025-2028, with the figure of 55 million euros for this region, for this period. So this also translates into specific call for proposals for SSE grants in the different regions and in the different municipalities. We, of course, have a national framework that coordinates these efforts. We have the Spanish Social Economy Strategy 2023-2027 that we are doing actually now a midterm review of this strategy. And this constitutes a real national roadmap for the coordination of SSE efforts nationwide. And then we also have a specific mechanism coordination, which is the Social Economy Development Council. That includes the representatives of the national entities and ministries, the sector entities, the representative entities of Spain in social economy, and of course also the regions and the municipalities. This is a key body for advisory decision-making, and the big decisions of social economy in Spain are validated in this advisory board with the regions, with the ministries, and with the representative organizations. In addition, we have launched recently several initiatives that support this consensus-based policy through the country. First was the establishment in 2021 of the Spanish Social Economy Capital Initiative, whereby each year a different city organizes and hosts a variety of activities and events to raise awareness about social economy regionally. And then I would also like to mention that the ministry intends to launch a network of municipalities that are leading social economy policies in 2026. This has already been done at regional level in some regions in Spain, such as Catalonia or Valencia. And we intend to translate this effort to the state as an important step to forging local partnerships and raising the profile of social economy in people's daily life. Finally, I would like to make a specific mention to the report. Of course, I again congratulate you for preparing and publishing the report. I would also like to express my gratitude for the inclusion of our comments, specifically in chapter 3, that acknowledges the efforts made by Spain and its regions to boost social economy and ensure that it is supported at all the different levels of the administration. And then I would also like to raise probably a proposal for the future. Perhaps I consider it could be very useful for the 27 member states to include in this report, hopefully in 2 years, if you repeat the exercise, hopefully, specific recommendations for each country in the report so that we can also do a follow-up of the policy making at national, but also at regional level, and in this way we can also maximize the expertise of OECD and the European Commission experts in this area. We could follow the example of the OECD Employment Outlook that we receive annually, or the European semester reports within the EU. Finally, we remain, of course, at your disposal to continue advancing together towards the international consolidation of this agenda that fosters the social economy and as a model that strengthens economic democracy and responds effectively to the current challenges of our societies, such as housing, Lamia was mentioning this morning, energy, finance, care, or fair trade. And having social economy will also be or having social economy very high on the European agenda will also be the main priority of the Spanish co-chairmanship of the Luxembourg Committee that we will be co-chairing with France. And actually, we will be having the first important meeting of this committee next Tuesday, also with the participation of you, Mia, I think, and the rest of colleagues, Ruth, of the European Commission. Thank you again, and best of wishes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Commissioner Iglesias, for that very insightful and inspiring, exemplary story, really, from Spain. Thank you to both of us for your contribution to the discussion on the levels of government involved in the governance of social economy. We will then move on to the topic of business support for scaling. Just in the interest of time, I will just like to remind the following speakers to stick to the 5 minutes that have been allocated for them to make their contributions. So we have Alessandra Medici, who is a project manager in Art Air in the Emilia-Romagna Joint Stock Consortium in Italy. And we have Grzegorz Wach from Nest Acceleration Lead, ESG and Impact Investments in Poland. So great to have both of you with us today. One of the main findings of this report is that business support for the social economy is a shared effort between the public and private sectors. In Italy, the Emilia-Romagna region launched 2 calls dedicated to social economy and social innovation through the ESF and ERDF to enhance the integration of social economy entities through skills initiatives and public-private partnerships. At the same time, the Nest CEE Accelerator is leveraging private patient capital and offering mentorship to social enterprises in Poland and Romania. So Alessandra and Grzegorz, could you please walk us through how the initiatives you represent support the social economy scale and professionalize? And how can innovative business support mechanisms support the social economy? With some examples, if possible. Thank you. I'll pass the floor to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be here. Yes, I will briefly just give you an overview of these 2 main calls that the Emilia-Romagna region, also with the support of others, published in the last years. But I also would like, before explaining the 2 measures, to just highlight that our approach to social economy and social innovation changed in the last year, because if in 2019, when we published the first call, we looked at the social part of our ecosystem, in the next year we open up our ecosystem, including also private companies, private sector, universities, and research centers. So our ecosystem is very large, and also is a great momentum for the Emilia-Romagna region, that also include in its political mandate a specific reference to social economy, and also at national level, because the government is working on a social economy plan. So for us, this is a very good momentum. So coming for the first measure, in 2019, the Emilia-Romagna region published the Skills for Social Innovation call. It was financed through the European Social Fund. As Arthur, we contributed to the content of this call because we were a member of an Interreg Euro project called RAISE, where we analyzed our social economy sector, finding out that our social enterprises suffer from a lack of managerial skills. So this call was mainly targeted to training center, our regional training center, and they proposed 126 projects, capacity building and training project for companies, private companies, and also social enterprises, in order to help them, including both, we can say, innovative and social innovation program on working tools such as working life balance and smart working and other internal procedures, but also we can say thematic issues such as Agenda 2030 and other issues that our social enterprises were not keen they did not know very well. It was a very satisfying call, but with the COVID pandemic, all the projects have to be implemented like with digital tools. So the implementation was different from what we were thinking at the beginning. Then in 2023, the Emilia-Romagna region, the productive activity, published another call financed through the European Regional Development Fund. And this call was dedicated to investment, so the regeneration of spaces or innovative or digital processes that satisfy social needs. The call is was open to private company and social enterprises, and 75 projects were financed. Also in this call, Arte and the Emilia-Romagna region are in this moment currently trying to influence another edition of this call, because we are involved in another Interreg Europe project, and we are elaborating a roadmap in order to offer additional inputs and tailor the call in order to be more effective and useful for our social enterprises and for our companies. Just closing my intervention, since 2023, we have a research and social innovation hub, which is composed by 57 members from private, public, and also from sectors and social economy ecosystem. And we are working with them in order to open up and to let our ecosystem grow. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, moving to our perspective. Firstly, hello everyone. It's really an honor to be with you, to take part in launching the report. And I would like to give you a really brief introduction to what Nest is doing, especially in Central Eastern Europe. So we are a global impact investor that invests since 1997 in enterprises that are creating quality jobs for underserved communities, while at the same time sustaining the planet. And as said, we work in CEE currently mostly in Poland and Romania, while at the same time we work with within 7 countries in South America. And to very briefly give you a scale, this year we just surpassed 100 active portfolio companies. And we are mobilizing mostly private capital to support the business development of those mostly social enterprises. Our support is divided mostly into two pillars. Firstly, we are providing patient equity-free capital in a form of different blended type financial instruments linked with the social impact KPIs. We believe that it helps reducing the grant dependency of social enterprises and really supports their investment readiness. Those instruments are an integral part of our accelerator programs that equips enterprises with business development support, build their, I would say, more rigid quantitative framework to measure social impact, to track their financials, and to help it to maintain over time. We work on average with the enterprise for at least 3 years. That starts with the investment after a very detailed due diligence process. And then down the road, we are strengthening their business resilience, improving, as said, their social impact, tracking awareness and efficiency, with an option of follow-on investment during that time. And for all of that, we are mobilizing the private capital and skills to partner with us in supporting those impactful companies, strengthening, I would say, the whole ecosystem. Among the others, we are partnering, for example, with IKEA Social Entrepreneurship, with Medicor, with Cisco Foundation, and we are buying in the corporate stakeholders into program development, offering them capacity building, volunteer options, working directly either with management of the enterprises or with the end beneficiaries. And yeah, and in a nutshell, that's the approach that we are doing here in the report. You could see an example of our C accelerator that is already active for over 4 years. With just last year extension for the next 3 years. So it's a really very long-term approach. And I'm open to for you to reaching out in case of any questions, open to discuss and collaborate. Once again, thank you very much for having me, and I'm really glad that this kind of report was launched. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much to you both, Alessandra and Gregos, for your contributions. We're going to move then to the topic of taxation, how to use tax policies to support impact. So we have with us today Albert Radler, who is a policy officer in DG Taxud of the European Commission. And we also have Bert Briss, he's the head of the country tax policy unit in the Center for Tax Policy and Administration at the OECD. So I'm going to start with Bert here. You have extensive experience advising countries on how to design effective tax policies. What should policymakers keep in mind when they are designing, implementing, and evaluating tax measures for the social economy?
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to talk at this fascinating event for the launch of your book. Let me answer that question by taking first a step back. Many countries currently are facing spending pressures because of a range of challenges they are facing. There's climate change, there's increased defense spending, aging that has knocked on the door, which has got big spending pressures, and not only on the spending side, but also have an impact on tax revenues that will be under pressure. There are challenges on housing, as was nicely introduced before. So many countries face a need for fiscal consolidation. That means in such a setting, tax revenues become even more important than ever. Now, countries can spend, but they can also spend through the tax system. We call that tax expenditures, preferential tax treatment that is provided through the tax system. The social economy often benefits from a preferential tax treatment, so from tax expenditures in a range of different taxes. There are three key dimensions that I want to talk about. Design of the tax system is important, the implementation, and the evaluation. First, on design, it's very important that the tax system is designed in a way targeted at social enterprises that is aligned with the purpose of the social purpose of the sector. And ideally also that the tax system, the preferential tax treatment, stimulates additional investment. It is economic activity that would have not taken place without the tax support. So tax measures should be fair and also apply as much as possible uniformly across different type of enterprises, so also within the social enterprise and the social economy sector. Now, if social economic entities engage in economic activities that compete with other sectors, for instance, with the private sector, it's important that the preferential tax treatment focuses on the purpose of the entity, and so that the preferential tax treatment is available only for the income generated in relation to the entity's purpose, and ideally also that these profits are then reinvested in the entity's purpose. It's also important that the tax system provides clear and simple rules. Many of the business and social enterprise are small businesses and face, like many other businesses also in the private sector, small businesses struggle with too complex tax rules. So in order to make compliance possible. So that there's a role there also for the tax administration. They should provide clear guidance on eligibility conditions, on compliance requirements, and so on. And possibly the tax administration could install a dedicated unit that just focuses on social enterprises. Second key element is the implementation. There, effective monitoring is critically important to avoid also misuse of tax policies and improve the trust in the social economy. So this can be done, for instance, by creating a publicly available register of eligible entities and introducing periodic reporting requirements, taking into account a balance, of course, that need to be made between effectiveness and avoiding excessive compliance burdens. And a third and last element is the evaluation. As I introduced the concept of tax expenditures, most countries have an annual tax expenditure report that is part of the budget cycle. So that the revenue foregone of preferential tax treatment is measured. Many countries currently don't do that. There are some good examples, such as France and the Netherlands, that actually do include revenue foregone figures in their tax expenditure report. And a last point I want to mention is for the sector, and it's linked with the tax system, to think globally. Many issues of that social economy entities seek to address, such as climate change or digitalization, global health, migrant inclusion, are cross-border. So while social economy organizations have strong local roots, some of the enterprises might want to test and scale socially innovative approaches in a different country. That means receiving donations from another country, or that means also possibly functioning across borders in another country. And the tax system needs to respond to these changes and to these challenges, possibly by having a harmonized framework across countries, or at least if that's not possible, and we're not calling for tax harmonization, but then a tax framework that allows for cooperation across countries so that social enterprises can develop as they want to meet their social purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much both for those insights. And your last point there actually leads us to what I'm going to ask Albert next. So the free movement of capital and non-discrimination on the grounds of nationality are core EU principles that apply to the levying of and exemptions from tax. How does the EU facilitate the application of these principles with regards to taxation for the social economy?
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. thank you very much for this report. We are very happy about this report. The thank goes to Amal and her team for the excellent work, and I also want to stress that for the excellent cooperation we had with you. We are very interested in this report because we had been working on relevant framework taxations for the social economy in the framework of the Council Recommendation 2023. This report complements and expands what we already had been doing before, and so we have very interested about or in your new results. Coming to taxation, for those who are familiar with taxation, they know that there's only limited legislation in the field of direct taxation in the European Union. Member states are in principle free to tax whom they want, what they want, at what rate, and when they want. And this is mainly due to the principle of unanimity. The proposal comes from the European Commission. This goes to the European Council. The Council then adopts the proposal from the Commission unanimously. So with 27 member states, this is rather challenging and results in only limited legislation in the field of direct taxation. Now, this diversity, you see it also in the field of social economy and its taxation, because every member states have some kind of particularities. There are some common traits, but each member state in principle is free. This is one point. Now, on the other point, there have been quite some development, and this does not come from legislation. It comes from jurisprudence, because with the treaties, member states are obliged to adapt their legislation also in the field of philanthropic and social economy with the treaties, and here the free movement of capital and the non-discrimination principle. So what does this mean? If you make donations cross-border, a foreign entity may not be treated less favorably only on the fact that it is established not in the same member state, but in another one. And here the European Court of Justice was very instrumental. And today, in principle, donations should be treated cross-border in the same way as domestic ones. The same, and a foreign or non-resident philanthropic entity should not be taxed less favorably than a domestic one. This is the theory. In practice, still quite a number of administrative burdens continue to exist. The main one is the burden of proof, because the burden of proof is based on the taxpayer. The main issue is that the taxpayer then, to apply this non-discrimination principle, needs to prove that the non-resident entity is comparable to a domestic one. This might be easy in certain circumstances. It can be very difficult in other ones. You have to translate, you have to, the statutes, you have to translate the yearly statements, you have to translate the yearly reports, and so on. This can be very, very burdensome. Now, with regards to the Council recommendation, we had recommended member states to consider to introduce measures regarding tax incentives, but we also made a recommendation that member states might introduce or might use common, harmonized, standardized forms. So we experienced that it can be a burden, an obstacle, that you have to hand in forms which then are not accepted by the other tax administrations. The use of such standardized multilingual forms would ease the operation of such donations cross-border and make the life of social economy and philanthropic sector and its taxpayers and donors less onerous and less complex. We are looking forward to progress in this area. This will come hopefully soon. There's a last point I want to stress, and this concerns the question on the taxation of philanthropic sector and social economy. Social economy is does not raise any special tax issues as long as it overlaps with the philanthropic sector. But in many instances, the social economy goes beyond what was or what is the traditional philanthropic sector. Please remember, we have market economic activities, we have market activities, and we have a difference in the financing because it is not only public funding and donations, but social economy are active on markets and they make their own turnover. So we have here a difference, and we experience that some member states have moved ahead and they reflect in their new legislation these new kind of business and these new kind of entities, and they have adapted their tax systems to these new schemes. We see also other member states who still maintain their traditional systems, and here we see a risk that these member states or that social economy entities in these member states might refrain to go beyond their traditional activities, because if they do so, they might lose the tax benefits, or as Bert says, the preferential treatment linked to the philanthropic entities. And this can be that
I'm sorry to cut you there. I think in the interest of time, we have to soon move to the next session. So if you can very quickly wrap up.
Yeah. So here, this is that member states refrain from doing so. Here, this is the call for member states to adapt the legislation. And here we have got some inspiring examples and sharing of best practices in the new report, which hopefully will receive the attention in the public it deserves. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to both of you. It was really, really a pleasure to have you here with us. I'm going to now wrap up on this session and pass over to our MC, Melis, and Nadim Ahmad.
Thank you very much, Mia, and our dear speakers. Thanks a lot for such an interesting conversation on these important topics, from how to establish the institutional arrangements to providing business support, and then finally on how to design taxation to support social impact. So now, without further ado, and looking at the time, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Nadim Ahmad, Deputy Director at the CFE from the OECD, to walk us through the discussion on the sectoral applications. Thank you, Nadim.
Super. Many thanks, Melis, and many thanks also to all of the fantastic interventions that we've had thus far. So we're going to have perhaps two panel sessions here that focus on the deep dives of the sectoral dimensions that we've reflected on this report. One looking at the care sector, which is our first panel, and the second looks at housing, which I'll introduce in a second. Now, I prepared in my head mentally quite a long, I think, speech to motivate this conversation, but I think that actually I don't have to, because it speaks for itself to a large extent, but also because, of course, the fantastic interventions that we had from Lamia, from Ruth, but also the great presentation from Amal and Margit, and the interventions from the others, I think have really set the scene. So in the interest of time, I'm going to jump straight into the intros and then also perhaps to the questions. And in this panel, I'm delighted to have with us Diana Dovgan. She's the Secretary General for CCOP, which is the European Confederation of Industrial and Service Cooperatives, and also to have Aoife Smith, the Director, and Nelia Raretha, the Chairperson and Co-founder of the Great Care Co-op, which is Ireland's first carer-run home cooperative. So thank you for joining us. So I'm going to dive straight in for you, Diana, with a quick question. Now, you have a bird's eye view of the contribution of the social economy, particularly cooperatives in delivering care services. Can you say a little bit about what distinguishes co-ops from public and for-profit providers in the delivery of those care services?
Thank you, Nadim, and good morning, everyone. Indeed, among our affiliates in CCOP, we have many cooperatives providing care to children, adults, and older people, whether at home, but also in day centers or in residential structures managed by cooperatives. And I should also underline it's one of the most rapidly growing sector within our network as well. Just let me give you a sense of their scale. Only in Italy, there are more than 14,000 cooperatives providing care services, which employ 400,000 workers. In Spain, our member affiliates around 1,000 care cooperatives. In Sweden, cooperatives provide around 10% of all childcare. Care cooperatives can be found well beyond the countries I've mentioned, also beyond the EU, by the way, yet their reach and impact still vary significantly from one country to another. Let me spend just some words on Italy, the pioneer country that saw the first cooperatives in the care sectors back in the 60s and 70s from the last century. How just to explain these impressive numbers? I think there are two elements to underline. The first element is definitely the favorable institutional recognition for social cooperatives, but the second element is very interesting, maybe something we haven't mentioned yet here since this morning, is what we call the intercooperation. And in other words, the creation of consortia or groups among cooperatives, which is quite common in the care sector and allows for economies of scale, investment innovation, to take part in substantial public contracts, for instance. Now, to answer to your question, Nadim, when compared to some other providers, what makes cooperatives unique lies in their governance innovation. Some of them are worker-owned, meaning that care workers themselves are co-owners and actively shape the decisions that affect daily their work. When they're worker-owned and managed, we see that the job quality is integral to the cooperative objective and thus prioritized in workplace practices. Characterized by higher job satisfaction and retention, work-life balance, and investment in staff training, cooperatives offer a stable employment opportunity in a sector where informal and undeclared work is prevalent. The other in governance innovation lies in the multi-stakeholder cooperatives, which bring together care workers, care recipients, family members, public authorities, and local communities. And the shared governance ensures that the services are designed with and not just for the people who use or provide them. As a result, these cooperatives are often seen as community-led care providers. In addition, we see that the multi-stakeholder governance increase the quality and effectiveness of the service provided as it takes into account multiple perspectives of the complex nature of care provisioning. It has been said before, cooperatives are filling the gap, especially in places where the public authorities or private sectors cannot satisfy the demand for such services, including in remote and rural areas where care provision is often lacking. They emerge from the will of the community members, for instance, parents of children with disabilities, or from care workers, or as joint initiatives from local public authorities and the community. So despite the strong potential we see for cooperatives to deliver both quality jobs and quality services, they continue to face significant structural challenges that require long-term solution. If you allow me, I will mention quickly 5 of those structural challenges. The first one, unfortunately, in many European member states, it's still not possible to establish a cooperative in the care sector. The second one is the shortage of care workers. We know that the sector is facing serious staff shortages driven by an aging workforce, poor working conditions, and uncompetitive wages. At the same time, a growing skills gap is emerging as care work evolves and digital tools become more important. While cooperatives already invest heavily in training, they cannot carry this burden alone. So dedicated public funding for upskilling of care workers is essential. The third challenge is the precarious work conditions and remuneration. We know that care workers earn on average only about 65% of the typical income and often work under precarious conditions, despite the work being physically and emotionally demanding. This strain affects both workers' well-being and the quality of care. And again, we have plenty examples of how cooperatives develop internal mutualized support and security schemes to their workers, helping them with private life hardships, or better combining work-life balance. A fourth challenge and a very growing threat to cooperatives, especially in the elderly care sector, is the financial speculation. Large profit-driven companies backed by investment funds are crowding out social economy providers and turning care into speculative market. And this risks spreading across the wider care sector, driving up costs for beneficiaries and worsening working conditions for care workers. To conclude, one of the key challenges for the sector is the lack of funding and public investment vision. While public procurement could be a powerful tool, it too often prioritizes lowest price over quality. This puts downward pressure on the wage of care workers, impacting the quality of the service providing. In fact, cooperatives are often excluded from accessing public procurements because of their higher upfront cost and their commitment to maintain quality, which prevents them from competing solely on price. And the revision of the European Public Procurement Directive is a great chance to put quality and social value back at the heart of care provision and to empower cooperatives and social economy actors to lead the way. Finally, one of the biggest existential threats to care services is that the care is seen often as an expense, where financial cost must be minimized regardless of the implication of the care recipients, as opposed to treating it as an essential service to the community where quality and affordability must be prioritized. Thank you for attention. Thanks to the OECD and the European Commission for this essential report that we are very looking forward to analyzing more in details, and for putting spotlight on this crucial sector today.
Super. Many thanks, Dana. And also many thanks, I think, for your five last key points, because actually they provide a fantastic segue to the next section, because we have here, of course, but two people who've actually overcome many of those challenges. And so I'm really delighted that we have the opportunity to reflect a little bit on some of the 5 points that you mentioned about how you establish a co-op and how you address the skills and labour shortages, how you access public funds. And so I have a question to you, Aoife, and to you, Nelia. Turning to your experiences in Ireland, could you please share how the Great Care Co-op was established and how you maintain an inclusive model while improving conditions for informal care workers, particularly women?
Thank you very much, Nadim. And first of all, good morning to everyone. We would like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for this invitation. It is a great privilege for us to be in front of you all to share and introduce a radically new approach in home care here in Ireland. My name is Nelva Reza. I'm one of the co-founders of the Great Care Co-op and the chairperson. How did we come up with having the Great Care Co-op? Migrant women who are working in care and domestic work are vulnerable in labor market. Our own experience, along with research by the Migrant Rights Center, showed migrant women were exposed to difficulties and challenges with employment. We are vulnerable to exploitation, discrimination, low wages, bad working conditions, and other problems that are related to our immigration status and gender. Back in 2007, I was one of the women who joined the Domestic Workers Action Group along with other 500 migrant women. All of us work in care and domestic work. We fought and campaigned for policy changes, rights, and recognition. Despite winning campaigns and new laws being introduced, the employment situation on the ground did not improve for us. So we, as the co-founders, thought that we must act now. We should find a solution that will have an impact on how improve the living conditions of migrant, particularly women, who are working in care. Our solution is a systemic change approach that will not only benefit carers working in the co-op, but will also benefit the clients, older and vulnerable adults and their family carers. We are building a more just and fair home care sector for future generations. Now, let me give you some stats on elderly people in Ireland. Did you know that in Ireland, somebody turns 65 every 15 minutes? And that somebody turns 80 every 30 minutes? And that 30% of over 65s live alone. Research clearly shows that the majority of the elderly prefer to stay in their own homes rather than going into a nursing home. Government policy supports this. The government is introducing a statutory home care scheme expected in 2027. Now, our mission is to provide great care and great jobs and to tackle labor market discrimination of migrant women. So to do this, myself and 8 migrant women supported by the Migrant Rights Center and funded under ESF Gender Equality Entrepreneurship Fund spent 2 years designing and developing this innovative model to bring to the Irish market. Through our years of proactively campaigning for rights in the Migrant Rights Center, we knew we had the skills, the knowledge, the expertise to design a better model. So at present, home care is a low-wage and a precarious sector. It is dominated by large international franchises and equity firms. It has a high staff turnover with poor pay conditions. This is contributing to labor market shortages nationwide, as care is not an attractive sector to work in. So the GCC model is a paradigm shift. It flips the current model of home care on its head. It is pro-women, pro-migrant, pro-worker, and pro-care. So it is an innovative approach that is highly user-centric, designed by carers for carers, founded by migrant women. It has extensive user testing and design sprints to test the value proposition. So we at the Great Care Co-op firmly believe that this is a great solution for the current healthcare system and for future generations. Now, thank you very much. So now I will pass it on to Aoife to share more about the Great Care Co-op. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelia.
Thanks very much, Nell. So like Nell has really illustrated the kind of the backstory and where it came from. So when we were setting this up, it was really important that it's kind of it was an evolution of, you know, the exploitation that many migrant women were experiencing. So we felt like the worker cooperative was the paradigm shift that had flipped that paradigm on its head, that put workers' rights at the top of it and had a collective feeling to it, because when we did interviews with a lot of carers, there was felt like the isolation that people were experiencing was a key problem as well. So with our model, we've kind of really embedded the participation of women within it at a local level. So teams work in small teams of between 6 and 12 carers in a local area. So even with scale, it tries to minimize the impact of scale by having decentralized local autonomous hubs with a support center in the back that takes charge of, you know, payroll, administrative work, governance and compliance. Because we have managed to secure a national tender to deliver home care in the kind of southeast region of the country, but it is it's a high compliance field. So the skill sets that are required to do that are quite specialized. So if you're talking about a worker cooperative, there was skills gaps within that. So I think the decentralized and the centralized hub really lends itself to that very well, because these hubs, the local hubs, are replicable nationally and nationwide, and can access within a framework that's been designed and a learning program that's been designed to support it and to really maintain that worker cooperative culture and the values of participation at all different levels, right up onto the board, but also taking what's not logical for care workers to be doing on the front line away and centralizing it into what we call a support services centre that's there to support and serve. So GCC, the Great Care Co-op, about 70% of our staff are from a migrant background, but it's designed for all, because we really see this as being a systemic change. It's a social innovator. It's there to disrupt. It bore out of the failures, really, the shortcomings of the kind of privatized model where migrant women were experiencing you know, how it didn't work, not just in terms of paying conditions, but also in terms of the quality of care. Like many people, we did a research of all care workers back in 2015 that were in public and private, and it was across the board. People felt like the model of care in the kind of commodified, scaled up model compromised their ethical, why they got into care in the first place, and meant that, like, often if they raised a complaint, they were taken off a client, and if a client raised a complaint, they lost their hours, and family carers didn't feel like it was supporting them, but yet the model was silencing that. So this is really to reimagine how care is delivered and put it much more in a local social context that's democratically run and involves all the stakeholders at a local level, so that decisions are done locally. So, like, because the rural urban divide is quite different, but there's key challenges. In Ireland, there are only 2 care co-ops. So I'm really inspired to hear that there's 14,000 in Italy. We're the only worker cooperative in care. So it's a very lonely place, because we're kind of learning as we go. So there's a huge need for more infrastructure and investment. And certainly, we're not a charity, so we can't avail of those tax incentives for charities. So, we're liable for corporation tax when we get to the surplus phase. But in terms of really tackling that low wage issue that Diana spoke about, this is critical. So in the last 2 years, we've improved workers' wages by 14%, 6% and 6.5% year on year. And we've also looking at sharing those dividends out. So when we get to economies of scale, we have a growth plan for 3 years. And when we reach that, there'll be significant surpluses of in excess of 1.5 million to share back out. So that's where you really make care work attractive, and we can start attracting people back into care, because at the moment it's not attractive and we're hemorrhaging care workers, the ones who are already in it. It's a very transient workforce, and that's not going to be the sustainable solution to provide care to the aging demographics across the whole of Europe. So I think I'll finish on that just because of time. But thank you very much for allowing us to share the panel.
Many thanks. I can see we could have gone on for an awful long time with this conversation. And maybe one day we'll organise another event just to hear more about some of these fantastic stories. So thank you very much. Perhaps I'll say a bit more about this when I'm wrapping up towards the end. But it was really great interventions from all of you. I'm going to move now straight away to the next panel, which is going to take a deep dive on housing. And I'm delighted to have with us two fantastic participants, Gerard Kosel, he's the researcher at the Federation of Limited Profit Housing Associations in Austria, and Sergej Edwards, he's the Secretary General of Housing Europe. Now, again, I'm not going to provide much by the way of motivation. I think you literally have to be living in a cave not to have understood that we have a bit of a housing crisis, whether it's about supply, affordability, or quality. And even if you are living in the cave, I would argue that you're living there because of the housing crisis. And so I think that doesn't need, any real motivation. But I'm going to jump straight in with a question for you, Gerald. Limited profit housing associations provide nearly 1 million homes in Austria. They have played a central role in shaping the country's housing market, providing long-term affordable rents and promoting social mix with limited reliance on public grants. What makes this model distinct from public and private providers, and what has been its broader social, economic and urban impact over the decades? Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation to say a few words about limited profit housing in Austria. And I think it's particularly good to also in the report that it emphasizes the economic role and the economic case for the social economy and for non-profit providers. So limited profit housing in Austria is, as you said already, it provides about 1 million homes, just keeping in mind there's about 4 million households. So 1 in 4 households in Austria actually live in a home that was provided or built by a limited profit housing association. And these organizations have developed over time. So they have often started off very small. Some of our members have a history going back more than 100 years, especially some of these cooperatives. And nowadays they manage on average about 6,000 homes. So there's a national framework, a national governance framework regulating this sector, saying basically how rents are calculated. So the rents, and I think that is quite unique, are cost rents. So when we talk about cost rents, it's in a way striking a balance between the affordability on the one hand for tenants, from a tenant's perspective, and also the financial viability from the organizational side, because organizations like this could only grow because they are financially viable in the long term. So they can recover the cost that it needed to finance new developments, and everything is calculated at the project level. So when they take up loans, they have to recover all the costs through rental payments, but not more than that. So that's the basic principles. And in addition to just recovering the cost, the idea is that you build up a revolving fund, so a little surplus, but this surplus is dedicated for reinvestment. So that's also a core principle: cost trends and revolving funds for reinvestment. So this is a sector that was allowed to grow and is supposed to grow. A clear sort of national legal governance framework. And on the economic side, it's quite interesting. We've done a few studies on that, commission studies to the Economic Research Institute in Austria that looks at the economic impacts both to households but also to the wider housing market. And it showed clearly that there are savings to people living in limited profit housing associations, and increasing like consumption in other areas, and even saving money to the public purse in terms of housing benefit expenditure in Austria is actually very low. So the need to subsidize people in their homes, direct payments to tenants is actually very low, the need for that. And also the money that goes from the public side into the sector, you can see a very clear and transparent governance framework ensures that every euro invested into a housing association is passed, all the benefits are passed on to tenants. So the cost rent calculation means that if you invest into an organization like that, the rents are directly reduced because of that clear governance framework. And we can see that the rents in this sector are about 25% lower than on the private market, and in urban areas and in new builds, it's even the difference is even higher, up to 50-60%. So there are clear sort of economic benefits, and I think that's the good thing to see. Coming back to that, what I said at the beginning, also in the report, that there are a clear economic case also for housing providers that operate on a non or limited profit basis. So thank you very much.
Super. Many thanks, Jordan. And I particularly like the reference to the savings dimension. This has come through a few times in the interventions that we've seen today, that the social economy plays a critical role, I think, in driving efficiency, driving, I think, broader, well-being that has an impact on the public finances, but also on everybody else's, their own purses. Sergei, I'm going to move to you now. Housing Europe is the voice of public, cooperative and social housing providers in Europe. It's a network of 44 national and regional housing federations, as well as 16 partnering organizations in 31 countries, managing around 25 million homes, about 11% of existing dwellings in Europe. So given the mounting housing affordability pressures across the EU and, of course, beyond within OECD countries, what policies could help your members to maintain affordability while not compromising on sustainability efforts?
Thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to recognize the big effort from OECD and DG Employment and really welcome this report. Also in respect of the timing, because on the 16th of December, obviously, this Task Force for Housing will produce the Affordable Housing Plan. Obviously, we have been putting forward models like Gerald just mentioned, being one of our key members in the EU. But of course, when it comes from the OECD and DG Employment, this message, I think, will be accepted even more strongly by the Housing Task Force. So we hope that it's a really core part of the plan that will be rolled out over the rest of this Commission's mandate as of the 16th of December. So thank you very much for that. I think I have some, let's say, good news and some bad news. And in the bad news, I think the bad news contains some constructive recommendations as well. So on the, obviously, very important to keep in mind. So Housing Europe, we have, let's say, a theory of change that we currently see housing that is divisive. It's really fostering inequalities, unfortunately. It's dividing generations, it's dividing society, and it's driving inequalities. It's also, to a large extent, polluting. It's producing CO2 emissions beyond what is possible for our society. So what we are in Housing Europe, working with public social cooperative housing providers, but also obviously driving this theory of change where housing can be, and we see those examples, as we've just heard from in Austria, where housing can be an inclusive force. It can be including elderly people, including youth, including people with disabilities, and through affordability, creating an inclusive society. And when you have a critical mass of this type of housing, it can also dampen the power of the speculative side of the market, which is now what is driving the crisis. So what we see is a growing interest and a growing because of the crisis. Obviously, the expression necessity is the mother of invention, or Not macht erfinderisch in German. So we see that massive interest in the cost rental model. We see countries like Ireland actually taking up this model, inspired by countries like Germany, adapting their legislation. So indeed growing, they might not think of it in terms of social economy, but the EU does see it like that. So that's important to note. Many of our members don't relate to the term social economy, whereas the EU does see them as such. So we see our role as Housing Europe. So we've produced a report on cost rental models, and obviously working closely with OECD and the European Commission on exchange of those types of best practice, but going beyond PowerPoint at conferences, but really breaking down, demystifying how those models could be actually implemented in new contexts. So we see massive interest in the cost rental model, and countries actually taking up that model. Likewise, in the cooperative model, we see a take up in Catalonia of the Swiss and German right of use rental housing, non-for-profit housing cooperatives. Also, they are also models which reinvest the surplus into housing. So really going along with this theory of change, where we don't have an extractive, exploitative housing system, but one that reinvests in people and in society and has a holistic added value. So we see this again, let's say, exchange cross borders and changes in the historical path, which is very rare in housing. Usually countries stick to what they know in housing. Very difficult to bring in new models. But because of the trends at the moment, we see a change in this. We see massive exchange across borders and real interest in learning from other countries. We also see, obviously, we have to take into account, for instance, the cost rental model. While Gerald mentioned that in Austria they've managed to reduce the amount of welfare payments to supplement rents, and this is crucial because supplementation of private rents has outgrown public investment in actually building homes over the last years, and we see that in the UK, radical increase in actually subsidisation of private unregulated rents, housing people in also in B&Bs, hostels, private accommodation. But just to keep in mind, in many countries, you don't have a rent supplement. So in Spain, you only have in the País Vasco, for instance. In Italy, you don't have rent supplement. So we have to keep this in consideration. And in those countries, we only actually have the public sector as the only non-for-profit in some cases. To really deal with low income groups, to cater for low income groups. So we have to keep that in mind when we talk about the growth of certain models when you don't have the welfare state backing that up. And I think that's a role for the EU to check as well. And then I'll just finish on, let's say, the bad news. Diana, who we work with also very closely as part of joint members of Cooperatives Europe here in Brussels, mentioned the crowding out of let's say, social economy actors by the speculation. And we see that there is potential for the EU in this housing plan to look at how they potentially, through their state aid rules and Eurostat debt classification, could actually check whether or not they are actually helping this process in crowding out the social economy. So we've seen, for instance, just in recent years in Finland, a reclassification of investment in non-for-profit housing providers as a public debt, and this has resulted in slow. Obviously, you can argue whether it's a politically driven accountancy change or accountancy that has unwittingly impacted policy. However, it can be chicken and egg, but nevertheless, we now have a situation where the Finnish social economy housing has been really weakened because their debt is considered as state debt, and we have an erosion of one of the better systems. Gradual erosion of one of the better systems. We see this risk in other countries as well, and we hope that the task force will raise this. The advisory board of the task force has raised this in their report, the risk of Eurostat classification potentially unwittingly impacting the capacity to invest. Obviously, broader debt rules, as we see 5% increase going to defence, but we also have to check how our broader debt rules also impacting. But this Eurostat classification is something easier, let's say, to tackle in the short term. And I would just mention state aid rules as well from the EU level. There has been, there is an ongoing opening of the rules to expand, to allow more freedom for member states to expand to what is termed affordable housing. However, there's a very strong risk linked to that definition that it is again going to result in a crowding out by speculative investment, crowding out of both social economy and potentially public players if there is no strong conditionality linked to that on obligations to have players that reinvest in the sector and are not only searching for equity and exit strategy for their capital, after which rents will shoot up. So a couple of tips there, how we potentially bad news, but where the EU could potentially really keep an eye on that, and where indirectly that framework is impacting. Sorry,
I
yes.
like bad news with solutions. That's always the best way of doing it. I should say that I worked on the definitions of public debt about 30 odd years ago, so fascinated by some of those suggestions. We'll take a close look at them. But thank you both for the excellent interventions. I'm going to have to move on now very quickly and segue to the final, I think, closing remarks here. And I will be very brief with my remarks, but I will give first the floor to Bridget Falahi-Brogno, one of our partners in this initiative, and she's the head of the Social and Inclusive Entrepreneurship Unit at DG Employment. So Bridget, over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Nadine. And thanks to all the speakers today for the very interesting discussion. And obviously, thanks first to our OECD partners for the report that really all now longing to look into more details. I think the discussion we had this morning clearly shows once again, that the social economy is a key model to ensure prosperity, competitiveness, and resilience in Europe. And really, it's already very much embedded into our economy and society, because it provides concrete solutions that really work for the best for all stakeholders around the table, and it really affects people's life. We just saw it in the example of care, for example. So we see that social economic organizations bring really inclusive and people-centered approaches to essential sectors, and that's really key. That's why they manage to mobilize communities, partner with public authorities, and step in when markets fall short. They improve access to the labor market, promote social inclusion, and help ensure that essential services remain accessible and reliable. As some of you, at least, or most of you are aware, our work in that area was framed by the Social Economy Action Plan, which was adopted by the EU in 2021. And from the beginning, the action plan runs until 2030, but a midterm review was planned for 2025 to see how much progress we have made, and also where should we head from now on. So indeed, this midterm review is ongoing, and it will be presented to the College for adoption in February. It's very important to text now, because the context and the environment since the adoption in 2021 have dramatically changed in Europe and around Europe. We went through several crises, either the COVID crisis or now geopolitical crisis very much since. Europe must remain competitive. Obviously, we have all seen a change in the narrative, but we are very confident that social economy fits very well into that new narrative as well, of remaining globally competitive and creating sustainable and quality jobs, keep services accessible, and ensure a fair path to this green and digital transition. COVID really showed, I was mentioning earlier, that social economy is a very good solution to ensure the resilience of the population and of the economy and of the jobs as well. So now what we want to do is really take stock of what we have done, renew a bit the narrative around the new challenges, and also come up with a new set of actions to maintain the momentum, because most of the actions that were identified at the time have more or less been implemented now. But there are remaining challenges. We just heard some of them. So somehow now we need to continue the work until 2030 with some new directions about where we should try to work at EU level, but also in cooperation with national and regional authorities at their local level as well. It's essential. That's also why the information on the institutional setups is very important as well. We need to work at all levels, work with stakeholders to make sure, because social economy is also, as was mentioned, very much a local grown they are local grown initiatives, sorry, and very much addressing local needs. So it's important to have everybody on board. What is good news, maybe, will counterbalance a bit the bad news we just heard, is that our citizens seem very well aware of the importance of social economy. We just ran a Eurobarometer. It was the first one on social economy. It was run before the summer and just published in October. I hope all of you could already have a look at it. And it really shows that our citizens are well aware, are really taking part into the social economy. Just a few figures, I won't go through all of them. More than half of European citizens have engaged with social economy in the past 5 years. 1 in 3 has received support, and almost 90% are then very in favor of public authorities strengthening the framework and the contributions that social economy can make in Europe through also public support. So this is, I mean, for us also an important evidence base of the change that social economy can bring, and also a baseline a bit to see, I mean, how far further can we go. And the OECD publication of today for us is also one of these building blocks really to demonstrate and give evidence on the role of social economy already today, and a basis for analysis of how we can go further. So that's what I will say today. Very much, I mean, I guess the report will be now online any minute. I'm sure everybody will be very happy to dig into it. Thanks a lot for the excellent work with the OECD team. Thanks to my colleagues as well, who are their counterparts, and co-organize the event today. And even more, I would say thanks to all the representatives of social economy organizations and other stakeholders who are taking part today. We rely on you. We'll try to make our best to continue the support, but obviously we rely on you to make sure that social economy remains such a good contributor, an important contributor to our inclusive and resilient economy in Europe. Thank you.
Super. Many thanks, Bridget. And let me also add my thanks to everybody for joining this event today. Everyone who participated, but also everyone who's online on the chat. I've been reading through the chat whilst we've been having these discussions, and they're fantastic ideas, fantastic contributions, and I think an awful lot of energy. I think that's going to help us to continue to drive the momentum that you mentioned, Bridget, and the momentum that I think that we see already happening quite strongly on the ground. The initiatives that we're seeing across Europe and across the globe, in fact, in terms of the uptake of the social economy, is fantastic. And these events and the work that we're doing together with the Commission are, I think, also vehicles to drive forward that momentum. I'm not going to try and wrap up everything that we've discussed, because I think it's going to be impossible. I mean, there are a few just really important takeaways that resonated with me. And one, of course, is the very important role that the social economy plays at the local level. I think that local dimension is really critical in terms of the narrative. There's also the sectoral dimension. We've spoken about 2 sectors today, and I look at the chat, and of course we know that the sector itself operates everywhere. I mean, it has an impact across pretty much most of the activities that we see. The circular economy, for example, could be a topic just on its own, and maybe we'll do that in the future. But also, I think, cuts across all different population groups. We spoke about the disadvantaged groups. We spoke about making sure we address gender gaps or informality, youth, and there's an awful lot there. I think that we can do more. Now, I'm just going to perhaps just focus on a few really important takeaways. The State Secretary from Croatia, questions about who operates, how we can foster it, and the framework conditions. I mean, those are critical elements, I think, of anything that we do, I think, taking this work forward. And Kami, you mentioned that, as further work, doing some, basically specific recommendations for member states is certainly something that we're very delighted to do as we take this work forward. I'm going to leave it there. An awful lot of fantastic, I think, input from all of you, an awful lot of fantastic ideas. But also, I think, strong awareness about the critical role that social economy plays in driving innovation, in also addressing massive challenges around inequalities. And it's in the chat itself, a few of you mentioned its abilities also, I think, to foster cohesion. Filling gaps is one thing, but of course, we also saw examples today, and we also know of examples in the publication itself. It's not just about filling gaps. The social economy is also competitive. It can compete with the private sector. So I think that's really important, I think, takeaway from all of this. And what we want to do, together with the Commission and together with all of you as well, helping us, is to continue to drive that progress in the sector. So thanks all again for joining us. We'll certainly keep you posted and hope to see you all again at the next event that we organise under this umbrella. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. A huge thanks to our dear speakers and participants. And you may now access the report online on the OECD and EC websites, as well as through the QR code you will see on the screen. We would like to once again echo our thanks to the European Commission for our long-standing collaboration to support social economy across Europe. And we hope to continue working together to promote better social economy policies for better lives. Have a nice day.